the Wastewater Support Committee for January 23rd, 2018. First thing on the agenda is the public comment. Small public, okay. All right, the next one is the approval of the minutes for January 10th.
Madam Chairman, I present the approval, ask for the approval of the minutes of the 10th of January 18, please.
Second.
Okay. The only thing I'm going to add to that on the top is that it says minutes instead of agenda. It doesn't say at the top whether it's,
I don't have it with me.
yeah, whether it says,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to add the word minutes.
They were the best minutes I ever saw, Madam Chair.
Pardon?
They were
Yeah,
the best minutes I
I
ever
know
saw.
where I know where you're headed. I know where you're headed with this. Where does it say agenda?
No, it doesn't say anything. I said, so since it doesn't say agenda or minutes, I'm going to add minutes to it, the word minutes.
I'm sorry?
Like here. It doesn't actually say that they're minutes.
Okay.
I'm just going to add the word minutes.
Okay, so when you say you're gonna add the word minutes, see, maybe after election of officers, we can discuss. It's who posts it, how you get it, it would say draft on it, so.
Okay. All right, we'll go over that.
All right.
All right. The next thing on the...
wait.
Wait,
didn't
we have a
vote.
motion, we didn't vote.
Well, I thought she wanted to wait.
No.
Oh,
no,
oh,
not
all
for
right,
that, yeah.
okay. All right, let's vote on it.
Leanna had discussion?
Is that okay?
Well, could I just
Sure.
make a comment? And that is, as we go forward, my suggestion is, whoever the clerk is, if you have comments on the minutes, if you could pass them to the clerk before the meeting so they can be addressed, and then we can not spend as much time if we have some lengthy discussion or
yeah.
things about the minutes, so we get that clarified ahead of time.
Okay.
And then we have a better chance of being a little bit more efficient at the table, I think is.
All right, all right.
It's just a suggestion.
That works.
So,
Good suggestion. All right. All right, so with the minutes for the 10th?
Just call for a vote. All's in favor?
Oh,
Say aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay.
Opposed?
Oh, opposed?
Okay.
All right, good.
Unanimous vote, and you so declare.
Oh, and then, okay, and
How's
then,
that?
Now we go home.
all this special lingo, it's going to take a while.
I think I want to be the parliamentarian.
All right, so the town administrator isn't here right now, so that we can pass. The next thing is going to be the,
Madam Chair, could I just ask, are we going to see him? I mean,
normally on the first and third Tuesdays, he's going to be here. When we picked those dates, he said he could be here. This is an off meeting
okay.
date, so he's got his department head meeting, so he's not going to be here.
So at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we would expect to get what I would call an update from him.
Yes,
All right?
yes. As a matter of fact, on February 6th, which is a Tuesday, David Young is also going to be here to give us some updates.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
We have a meeting this Friday with Chatham as well, just Chris and I.
Can you speak into the mic so
Is
that
part of the agreement with Chatham?
Yes.
Or something different?
Yeah. Yeah, so Friday, it's the second, I believe, Friday, right? Or maybe it's
the
next Friday.
6th?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
this
this Fri-
Friday?
Yes. I
This
believe we
Friday's
have a
like the
meeting-
26th or
Okay,
something.
then maybe it's next Friday, or I apologize. We have a
Okay.
meeting, progress meeting with Town of Harwich, Town of Chatham, their engineers, as well as CDM Smith.
There
Okay.
is a Friday, the 2nd, so that's probably
yeah.
when you're meeting.
And could I just ask, is Bob Duncanson part of that team,
Yes.
I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay, so one thing, if we could, Dan, I know you gotta leave in a few minutes, but if there's anything we'd like to get out of that meeting, we might, I think this group is gonna be interested in things like, because we heard it when we had the hearing, or the meeting over at the community center, what information do you give the consumer?
Mhm.
When they have to go figure out how to get hooked up and whatnot. So any of that information, we'll probably have our own separate meeting at some point going over there and trying to get information. But any of that stuff we can get ahead of time would be great.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you guys as a committee want to pass through me too as well, I'm happy to relay and get back to you. And
I have a couple for Dan to work on. No hurry, but I was wondering if, from the water department, there'd be any way you could look at the actual usage of the homes in the target area?
Yes.
Because I know we're basing the number for those people on 70,000 gallons. My usage is only 30,000 gallons. You know, I'm wondering if an average might be more like 50,000 gallons. So if, no hurry, because this won't come up for years, but, you know, if you could look right at that area and see what their usage is. Also, I didn't know if there was any way you might have a list of streets. I tried to do it through assessing, and it just was, you know, not conducive to their maps. But I'm trying to get the names of the streets in the target area. I know eventually we'll get them from CDM Smith, but that's a few weeks away.
Yes.
So anything like that that would help with
Yeah,
it.
so first, the consumption data. We have been giving CDM Smith the water consumption data for the entire town, and what they've been doing with that is pulling the East Harwich sections out. So right now, they're currently in the process of determining actual flows for the most recent years. We've been going back and forth because I believe it was 2015 and 16, the department pumped in excess of 100 million gallons over what we normally do. So they're working, I've been working with CDM to try to get to some reasonable daily number for that section of town. And we were going, I would attribute that extra 100 million from those 2 years to be irrigation, primarily irrigation, because those were huge drought years. So they are currently working on those numbers for that section of town. And that's part of the things that we've been discussing at those progress meetings, because we have to kind of solidify that and get that to Chatham's engineers for the design of the pump station at the, you know, where the two towns meet.
Great.
And then second was the street names. So
Right. If you can. If
yeah,
not,
and I'm sure that, because they use, I believe they're using ArcGIS map. So all of that information is on. I'm sure if I can get the live map, you can zoom in and actually see the street
what do you
names.
mean is on what?
Like if you go to harwichgis.com, we have a GIS map of the entire town with all
Okay.
of our water infrastructure. If I can get them to create a layer with a new map that would include the street names,
Okay.
could access that online. So
Yeah.
right now, I know they're still talking about, there's a little, as they mentioned at the meeting last week, maybe moving out some of phase 2 into the other phases.
Yep.
So I think that may be part of that gray area as far as, you know, exact streets, you
Right.
know, those areas, but that should be pretty easy. So I will.
And Dan, while you're here, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but my assumption is that at the, in the commercial district in East Harwich, all those businesses will be connected to this system at some point?
Specifically, like up by Stop and Shop?
Like Stop and Shop, for instance?
Yes, that is the intention at this point from,
And like 400 East, where they put their own little thing in
Yep.
there, but eventually that'll be
yes.
abandoned, right? Or
Right.
somehow be tied in?
Yeah, and that's what we were going through at the last progress meeting too, was trying to determine what sort of a layout we wanted to use in that specific intersection, whether we want to go straight through 39 and 134 or up, there's a side street up and cut around.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah.
trying to figure out exactly the best way to get through there with the least amount of impact to the residents.
Okay,
And then from there,
and do you know if anybody's had any discussions with any of the businesses? I mean, you know, the focus, I think, has been on the consumer, which, you know, we take to be residential, you know, households. But there's a big chunk of businesses that
Right.
are gonna be impacted by this, so.
I am not aware of any direct communication. That doesn't mean there hasn't been,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
haven't participated in
I
it.
think as we go forward, that's gonna be something we're gonna have to deal with. Because I'm assuming some of those businesses are owned by out-of-town entities, and they may not be paying that much attention to
country.
wastewater and whatnot. What's that?
Out of country.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
mean, you know, they may not be paying that much attention to, you know, what's going on in this, and suddenly they'll show up and say, oh yeah, I need to be hooked up, what's that mean, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and one of the options that we were looking at was actually going through that Stop and Shop Plaza.
Yeah.
You know, so they're right now looking at, you know, who owns the properties, if they own that whole chunk, can they lease to those buildings, or,
Yeah.
so that is a topic of conversation
Okay.
we've been having too, so.
So will that be up to you people to notify them?
Yeah, I would presume that it would be the town, either individually or by way of CDM, moving forward in this process of, contacting those businesses.
All right.
I mean, I couldn't see any harm in, this committee reaching out or, but.
I mean, our job is to share information and make sure folks are informed. So once we get our act together, and by that I mean have, information about whatnot, and we can invite them in, the business owners to just say, hey, just be aware this is happening, this is
Right.
what it means to you.
And I think too, once we determine the layout in that area of the pipes, that would probably be a better time to
Sure.
bring them in. That way we can, because that's been Chatham has relayed that to us, is maintaining that rapport with the businesses, because this is gonna impact traffic to their
Sure.
businesses. So to have that line of communication and work with them for detours and things like that.
Yeah,
so.
so it's gonna cost them some money, and they're gonna have to
Right.
hire some folks that are, run pipes and do things, and, yeah. I guess the point is, let's not forget the businesses,
Yeah, good point. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the election of officers. Okay, Peter.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the following slate of officers for your consideration. For chairperson, Sharon, for vice chair, Chris, and for clerk, Noreen.
All right. Does anybody else want to?
You could ask if there's a second to that motion.
Oh, okay,
I second that.
Thank you.
okay.
Discussion.
Discussion. Peter?
Madam Chairman, a couple things. One is that I appreciate and respect all the work you've done so far to get this thing going and whatnot, and you obviously have a tremendous commitment and passion, I think, for this topic. So, I think that your time availability, although none of us have unlimited time, but I think you have put a lot of time into it and have the time it takes to do this job effectively, and we're here to help you, and don't feel like we're not. And we will support you in any way that we can as you ask us and as we go forward. But I think you would be an excellent choice. And Chris has been involved with this topic before, and if he's willing to take on the vice chairmanship, that'd be great. Noreen, excellent minutes the last time. It convinced me that you were getting clerk right off the top, but I think it is important in any group that, and we've learned this in the past on other groups, to make sure that minutes are done, promptly and accurately, and, get submitted and whatnot so that we're all legal. And it's very important, but also the record of what we're doing, our business going forward, is critical. And I think that your knowledge of the subject and whatnot will help that tremendously. So I hope the three of you would consider this in addition to Ann and I.
Discussion. I think that's a nice setup. I would ask if there are any, I know you got vacation information from people on your calendars.
Yes.
Are there any gaps between you and Chris? Are there any months when you're both out of the country, or
Are you going to be?
No, in pretty good shape.
through May at least? I'm not
Yeah.
asking for the rest of your life,
You can never, ever. No, I'm good through May,
All right.
unless anything unforeseen would come up.
Then the only other comment I would make is that I would take on that somewhat onerous duty, as long as it was clear that I would never take it on for a second term. Because what I'm finding with all the meetings that we have is that I don't get to do my own wastewater work. By the time I finish those, I didn't get to design topics for wastewater minutes. I didn't get to prepare stuff for informational meetings. And it's difficult for me to come in unprepared to a meeting, which is I do the minutes or I prepare. But I would do that for our committee, but I wouldn't take it on for FY19. So that's fair warning to the rest of the committee that my role performing this service would end in June.
But if we up the rate of reimbursement for you, you might reconsider
Well,
FY19.
I don't know, I used to get a reserved seat at the town meeting on the finance committee.
No problem,
And a
right?
pitcher of water. So if you can do better than
How
that,
about candy?
a little candy too.
So you're saying June of 2019?
No, I'm saying June
June
of
of
2018.
18, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay, you said,
She's fast. Yeah. Every year we re-elect officers.
all right, so it goes by
And
June-
I'm taking my name out of contention for
For-
the next round,
Okay.
so.
I would say now. 'cause,
All right, yeah.
you're gonna love this job so much. If I could just say this, I've been on committee, and by the way, it is very difficult for the clerk to participate in the meeting and take enough
Right.
notes and whatnot. I more than appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons I don't wanna do it, but, I mean, but having said that, I just point out, it's not essential that every word that's spoken and everything that's done has to be in the minutes. The minutes are there to basically record the fact that there was a meeting, what the topics were, who attended, you know, any votes or decisions that were made. But a lot of the discussions that might take place, it's okay just to say, we discussed this. And by the way, in the minutes, you can also attach some stuff that comes in, like, you know, somebody submits a report or something like that. So I would, if it gets to be a bit onerous, and we talk too much, like I'm doing now, brevity in the minutes is
Yeah.
probably a better thing to do.
Well, I do edit it, Will, but I do like to give a flavor, but it's my flavor.
understand.
That's why the
Minutes
input
are
back
excellent.
from you guys is good. And I'll warn the chair right now, I'm away for 2 meetings at least in April.
Oh, I saw that.
So you'll need to find somebody else for that. And then you never know, there might be a time where I might just say, I need a break.
Okay.
I've also, like your previous suggestion, that if we have comments on the minutes or, you know, basically a report that we can submit to
Right.
you, that will make the job of getting the details into the minutes more straightforward.
Yeah, anything
And
written helps.
Anything written helps. And so I think going forward, if we have, it will also take some burden off of the chairman
Right.
of this committee, if we have tasks to pursue, and then turn it into a written document. It keeps, first of all, it gives us homework and a deadline, but also it allows us to update that and submit it to you on a continuous basis, so you don't have to do a do-over every time. So that there's a report, and then there's an addendum to the report.
I'd like to talk about the mechanics of who does which, but I don't see why we can't vote these in the meantime, so we know for sure.
Oh, go ahead.
I have one comment about Peter's slate, and that's to Sharon's leadership. There's certainly a great advantage to having a fresh set of eyes on a problem, number one. Number two, Sharon has that touch of respectful curiosity when you ask questions, and I think that's a great advantage. I don't see you having kind of a dog in this fight.
No.
You are very open-minded. You've obviously had corporate experience in project management, and I have a lot of respect for the time we've been together and
Thank you.
other meetings we've been parts of.
The only thing that I have to say is, going back to my previous experience, it wasn't as formal as this, you know, where you had the legal lingo that needs to be used, so they're going to have to bear with me.
We will help you.
And on that note, I saw an interesting thing that I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but I'm going to. On the Channel 18 page of the town website, there's, you know, a list of videos, popular videos on the left, and one of them is how to run a meeting. And it was from a show televised about a year ago. I only got a chance to watch the first 10 minutes, but I think it would help everybody to do a little review of that, and it was run by our attorneys and stuff like that, so.
You did mention that, so, yeah, so I will accept that as long as people understand that I'm new to this kind of setup. Okay, thank you.
Bye, Dan. So I still want to talk about the mechanics after
Okay.
we vote.
Oh, all right, so,
I move we approve the slate of.
Actually,
No,
Peter
wait,
already
wait, time
nominated
out.
it, you seconded
If
it.
I could, there's a motion on the floor.
Right.
okay,
So the motion is for that slate, you as chairman, you as vice chairman, you as clerk.
okay,
You seconded the motion.
I second it.
We're now in discussion. If we're done with discussion,
okay,
now you can call for a vote.
okay. Call for a vote.
All those in favor of the
All
motion,
those in
so
favor?
signify by saying
All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
okay. Do I vote on
and
this?
opposed? And opposed, ask for any
Oh,
opposition.
anybody oppose?
Well, maybe you, but
So I didn't know whether I was supposed to say aye to this or not.
Okay, so.
congratulations, by the way.
That's right. Congratulations. We'll say that now. In May, we'll see. So committees design things a little bit differently from each other. And this committee is slated a lot of meetings, so, you know, we have to adapt to that. You know, at least 3 or 4 a month, you know, that's a lot. So the clerk normally posts the minutes once they're voted. So that would be my role. That's why when you said I'm gonna add minutes, I didn't know what you meant.
Oh, okay, I
Alright.
meant the word minutes.
No, but what
Yes.
I meant is, so the minutes now belong to the clerk. In other
Okay.
words, I send them to you, you review them.
All right.
Because your input is the most important. And then when you're completely happy, you send them to the committee. And then they write to me any typos, any numbers wrong, or anything that they think is just not stated correctly.
Okay,
And then once they're voted, I will post them.
all right.
That's,
All right, and I have a question, because I thought when I was reading over the laws for this, that the minutes were supposed to be posted within 10 days of the meeting?
well, we do the best we can.
Okay, so they're not,
Tough.
we don't get
Right
dinged?
off the bat, tough.
You wanna move to reconsider the last vote?
I think so, yeah, we're still here, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
The minutes get posted when they're right, first of
Yeah,
all,
all right,
so,
okay.
you know, and
All right,
voted, you know, so.
all right.
So, all right, so now, I now own the minutes, for better or
all
for
right,
worse.
okay.
Now, sometimes the clerk posts the agenda too. Quite frankly, I don't see with the timing of our meetings, how I could possibly get in the middle of that. I
All
think
right.
you now own the agenda.
All right.
Unless other people have ideas, because with the meetings coming up every week, I don't see how you insinuate a third person.
Yeah. The only thing I would ask that on the agenda, if somebody has something they want to put on the agenda, to let me know as soon as possible so that I can get that in on time. So you, instead of me asking if you have something, just place it on, or send me an email. Does that work?
And I think it'd be wise, too, if we could, at the end of this meeting, we do at least a rough draft of the agenda for our next meeting.
I agree.
All right.
Before we leave
Okay.
the room.
Okay, all right, that works. I like that idea. All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, number 6 is the old business. Continued discussion on outreach. I don't know, we can start with Peter. Do you have anything you want to add?
Quite frankly, I'm waiting for some information, I think, like the town administrator presentation and whatnot, and CDM Smith and whatnot, before we get too far into this, because we could go down the wrong road. And
Yeah.
I like to know what I'm dealing with before I jump in and say, let's go this way or that way.
Anything for you?
I think a lot of our direction is going to be dictated by the town meeting and the articles for that. And that's going to automatically put some things in the center of the bullseye that we should deal with, and some things maybe on the outside that we don't have time or energy to. But I see as part of our charge to closely monitor those warrant articles as a pretty good roadmap for a lot of our work, especially in the next 2 months.
I agree with Chris completely, assuming we're gonna get an update from Dave Young and CDM on February 6th. I think that we have to start the ball rolling by making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, as Peter suggested at last meeting. I would say by the end of that month. Hopefully by March 1st or early March, we should have a decision about what will be in the May town meeting article. And that's gonna frame our whole slate of meetings and everything we do. I wish we could even do it earlier, but there's a lot of discussion to have, and there'll be some pushback. So I think March 1st is a good target date.
I think the critical point there is, and we're gonna learn it from Chris, I think, the selectmen will need to decide whether or not they're gonna take a project, the project, to town meeting to get funded based on some status of the design and potential bids. If the selectmen say today, I'm just making this up, that we're not taking a project unless it's been bidded, we have bids, at least 3 bids, valid bids, whatnot, and they've been evaluated, and we'll take that to town meeting, which I think, quite frankly, is the way to go. The question is, can we get from here to there in time? If we can't, then I think it changes a little bit of the direction, because if we're gonna take this $22 million project to town meeting to be funded in May, we got a lot of work to do between now and then. If not, I don't wanna say we take the the pressure off the gas pedal, but it certainly changes what we have to focus on and how quickly we have to do it.
And as a follow-up to that, I think we take the interconnect anyway, the 2.1 million for the interconnect with Chatham, we could take that portion, I think that's still slated. So, we'll have some town meeting communication anyway. I know a lot of people feel we should have a bid in hand. I did a lot of thinking about it this past week or so, and if we had a 90% design done, I might even be happy with that. I might be a little easier to please. Or, God forbid, maybe even a 75% design done. But I'll be interested to hear what CDM has to say. It's hard to believe they're even beyond 50% at this point. So, I don't see how, we just saw what happened last year with the harbor. So that's fresh in our minds. Plus, just as good practice, I think a 90% design would be the minimum bar that I would accept.
Larry?
Oh, good. I wanted to follow up this discussion because I did have a chance to talk to Dave Young at the conference in Boston this past week to give him some input of what was expected when he appeared at our meeting. And I agree with Peter that his comment that you folks have a lot of questions, and they're moving as fast as they can, but they're under a lot of pressure to get the answers to those, because you're going to ask him, exactly where they're at, but then they're trying to figure out what the more details, what the exact costs will be. The completion, even of the 600 homes, where that's going to be, because there's talking about going back and forth. We have the funding for the connecting items, so there's some issues. I like the idea of getting bids first, but there's no way we're going to get that done before a town meeting. So, but we need to get really close to the exact. So, the point I'm making is I agree with you're probably better off constructing this in detail after you hear from Dave and find out exactly the details of everything, because they're doing a lot of work yet to try to get these answers, and I think you're going to learn that there's a fair number of questions they need to get answered to yet.
The one comment I have on that is that we had planned on doing an evening meeting once a month on a Wednesday for town people that can't come in the morning. My concern is I don't know what information at this point we have to bring forward to the town that they don't already know. And that's going to go into, depending on what information that we get from Dave Young, what added information we can provide to the town.
Well, for instance, as it certainly was implied at last week's meeting, they haven't yet determined where they're going to lay the main pipes, because they're trying to minimize the amount of pumps they need. They haven't worked out yet the details of the pumping station with Chatham. Peter, you guys talked about putting that in, and who's going to pay for what flow into that? Because Chatham, and that unfortunately is more on Chatham than us. They haven't quite agreed on what they're going to sewer their next phase, but that will affect what our costs will be. We learned last Tuesday that they haven't quite decided yet on where the homes we're going to sewer for the next phase. And I have a concern with that, because I don't like the idea of saying we'll do the money. If we don't have enough money, we'll sewer fewer homes. We've been down that route with Saugatuck Harbor. No one's going to. I don't think that's it's going to work. So they're working hard to get these. To determine, go back and look at the areas, go back and relook the pipes to be sure that makes sense. Working with Chatham. I think they'll get pretty close to it, but that's what we'll find out. We'll all find out more next week. concern I have too is that you really have two, as it relates to the overall communication town meeting, you have to split your side basically in half, because you have the focus of the East Harwich group that has very specific questions, then you have to communicate with the rest of town and get it through town meeting. Those are two quite different audiences and thought processes. But I don't know, I think other than a general discussion, we're gonna really gonna have to know what the facts are next, when he gets here, and determine where you're gonna go.
I would think, the way I would look at this is, you're right, we're not going to get any really more definitive information from Dave next week, or on the 6th. But I would think if...
I wasn't
what-
saying that.
No.
I think what we'll find out is, you'll know where they are, and you'll know what questions to ask.
Yes.
And
I
that's
think
really what
that
you're
we
after
can-
at this point.
I think that we can bring to the town to let them know where we're at, where we still have to go, to, at least to start a meeting, because we said we were going to do this once a month. And that information would be helpful, at least to let the town know where we're at.
Sharon, I've been waving.
Oh, didn't see you.
1 second, Peter. To me, the evening meetings are really important. From my experience with town projects, big town projects, even if somebody can't make an evening meeting, if you don't have an evening meeting, it bothers them, you know, and it's their own property that's involved and everything else. We're only talking about one a month, so that's one in February, one in March, and one in April, so not a lot. And to me, equally important is taking the people's questions. Right now, they don't have anybody to go to. They can't call up CDM Smith. They can't call up Chris Clark for every single thing they need. So we're really their only place to come. So even if we held those meetings, remember I suggested we keep them to one topic, which is give and take information from that. Even if we don't give out much information, but we take all of their questions, I think it's worthy. I don't think these will be 3-hour meetings. You know, there might be 5 people and, 40 minutes, but I think we'll already have met with Dave Young, and we take their questions,
I just want, Larry, while you're here, I'd just like to be clear about one thing, and that is, as far as CDM Smith goes, my understanding is, having been part of the process, that at last year's town meeting and subsequent ballot vote, they're fully funded to complete the design for East Harwich, right? So-
both parts, right?
What?
Both parts.
What do you mean both?
Phase
parts?
2 and Phase 3, north and south.
I can't speak to that either. but-
Okay, I believe that's true, but we should double check.
Okay, well, my point is, no matter what the construction schedule ends up being, they are funded to complete the design. And I think the selectmen at some point have got to make a decision, what do you take to this town meeting as opposed to waiting, until designs are done? And so I think it's gonna be a philosophical thing with the selectmen about whether, okay, did we learn something from past? Do we need to have bids, and have that all buttoned up? Or can we do it in pieces, or do we focus on the interconnect? What are we doing? Do we say, okay, they're 80% done with design, so we'll just take a number and we'll go to town meeting with it? And by the way, the state funding plays into that, and a number of things that happen. But I want to make sure everybody's aware that CDM Smith is funded to do this work. I mean, they are. So it's not like they're going to be looking for their own money going forward at town meeting, because they have it.
If I may, and those are excellent points. Just for my clarification and for you all, I've requested 2 documents. I don't think I got because it's gone a couple of days. One is our contract with CDM Smith to verify exactly. And the second document I asked for was the IMA with Chatham. And my interest in that is not the IMA as much per se as it is to clarify whether we voted for what we have to do with the sewer regs. Because, that was part, Peter involved in that. My understanding is that was part of the IMA because we had to agree to those. What I don't remember, and Peter, maybe you can help, is did we really review those in a public way? People voted on them as part of the IMA, but we probably need to bring that back and at least be sure everyone understands it. Whether it's just posted so people know what those are. So I've asked for those 2. So your committee can get them, then you can decide how. We probably need to be sure those are all very public as well.
Can I ask you a question on that? Since the IMA was finalized, and I believe so was the sewer regulations, can we get, I did not see them on our website.
Well, that's just what I said. I've requested those. When I get them,
Oh, all
I'll
right.
give them to you and
but
put them
all
on the
right.
website.
Or
Yeah.
you would also have them put on the website?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll bring them back to you guys first and have you look at them. But I've requested both of those documents.
All right.
And I should get them shortly.
Okay.
Congratulations on your appointment. I don't necessarily envy you. But as I'm looking from the outside in this time, there's a couple of things, just put some dots on the map here, if I may. I think it's important, even though you may not have all the answers, to let the public know that. And going back to the time that I did work for a living, my customers would say, I don't mind changes, but I hate surprises. My point is, the minute you know that the thing is deviating from the plan you had, you have to tell the client, in this case, the public at large. And I think it's a bit also like the pilot on a plane. When there is a delay, you sit on this plane, and if you hear nothing from the pilots while you're sitting on the tarmac for 30 minutes, and he does not communicate, you get sort of miffed, to give it a name. So I think that the outreach as you're doing it, and to keep the public honestly informed, is the most important thing you can do. I think a year ago, when we tried to get the funding for this phases 2 and 3, we did a major effort successfully with the participation of many of you, and I think that got the ball rolling quite nicely. You got a lot of money. You got, I believe it was $20 million or so last year. I think the public expects to know what you did with it. And if you didn't spend it all that you had hoped to spend, why didn't it happen? And there's nothing like honesty, as long as you have a good reason for it. So my point is, if you know that you're not, as Noreen might hint, reach a 75% or a 90% or whatever the criterion is, if you don't reach it, the minute you know it, you need to send it out to the public and have a reason why that didn't happen and how you're going to correct it. That's all I have to say at this point, I think.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would say to Peter, while we have him, that this committee has a unique piece of its charge, which is we're allowed to bring in ad hoc members as we see a need, or to just use people's services as we see a need. So since this is obviously a much smaller committee than the older one, and whenever it's decided that we go to town meeting for a big thing, you never know, you might be pulled in to present things over the course of that escalation.
Do you have a pitcher of water ready?
Yes, yes, I definitely will. So you just never know when that might reach out, when all those, because I remember the job that you and Chris did on Channel 18 last year. I still have those on tape, and they were very good.
And if I may, again, and again, that Channel 18 and the combination of a lot of brochures, and I have not been in tune with it very much, I had some other commitments, but I think the Channel 18, I think, was well received. I think a lot of people watched it and got some good input. And since you're now professional actors, most of you, I think I would do it again.
All right. Any more comments? All right, moving on. I think that kind of also covered the preparation for the evening. You want more?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
No, please,
All right.
start.
So, the first one in the tentative schedule we laid out would be February 14th. So first we have to decide, is the fact that it's Valentine's Day a bad time to have our first evening meeting? You know, so that's one topic. But whenever the first meeting is, we only have this meeting and our meeting on February 6th, which will be very busy with Dave Young to attend to decide what we're going to do at that meeting. and what the agenda will be. So I suggest, to formally suggest it, that we keep the agenda to just questions and answers from the public for the first one, something like that. I don't know. I think we bring a couple of maps, the best maps we have. I have an easel at home, but it's pretty rickety. I have a clipboard for a sign-in sheet. I mean, these are the things we have to decide, so.
All right.
I was just going to, we were thinking along similar lines, and I think Q and As are expanding based on the previous meeting. I think it's wonderful to take Q and As from the audience, but I think we should come with our own set to expand that, because we're probably a little bit ahead of what the attendees may have in mind. And so I think it's very beneficial. We're going to have to expand that list of Q and As in any event, and that adding to it will be a good preparation and contribution to that meeting.
My suggestions for that is, the first topic is, here's what we've learned. So this committee can have one sheet bullet item thing that any of us could talk to that just says, here's what we've learned. So if we learn, for instance, that something about state funding, if we learn something about the status of the design, if we learn something about setting up a wastewater information center in Albert House, if we learn, whatever we learn, just run through those bullet points. It only has to be 10 minutes. And just say, okay, this is what we, since we were charged with this and we formed our committee, which just, by the way, started today officially, here's what we've been able to dig into and find. And go from there. And then question and answer, and I think that's probably okay for that first meeting.
Yeah. But I think we will learn some things from Dave Young that we can part to the group, and then, I agree, and then go to the question and answers, not just strictly questions and answers.
So are you suggesting a document be written after the February 6th meeting to be ready for the February 14th?
I'm going to say just like bullet points from the information that we get, that we can provide.
My suggestion is that immediately after that meeting on
Uh,
what's the next one we have? Next,
14th would be the evening.
No, the 6th.
The 6th.
the 6th.
Yeah.
Maybe Noreen and I sit down after that meeting, just go boom, 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 and we make a
Okay.
draft and send it out to you folks and say,
Yeah, we can.
this is it. And we can decide. I mean, I don't see a lot of presentation material, but I do see, if I have a document, I might hold it up and say, okay, I have this thing. And here's another one of those things. And,
Is that something that we could, in other words, just type out, put together, and we can hand out, almost like you hand out an agenda? It doesn't have to be something formal?
You can put it as part of the agenda for the meeting, just attach it or something.
Oh, all right, okay.
As long as we phrase the top that it's draft and subject to change, we can, people will ask, what we're looking at, and we want to share information, so.
All right.
Sure, I'll take that on with you, Peter. Yeah, right
I
after
make it
that.
difficult. It's just like later on, we get into things like, field trip to Chatham and whatnot.
Right.
I think it's gonna behoove us as a committee, instead of trying to figure out when everybody can go, if we understand what topic we're trying to deal with, and maybe only 2 people can make it, and you make an arrangement that says, okay, at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, you and Chris go over there and you bring back the information to this group, because, time is sort of the essence.
So, we don't know where that meeting's gonna be. What do we do for, visual aids, for easels, for maps, for clipboards?
When you don't know what meeting?
The evening meeting of February 14th.
It's going to be here in this room.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, that's what I was
So, I guess then, is that an easel?
That is an easel, yeah.
There is an easel.
We have a whiteboard behind here.
Okay. I mean, it'd be nice to have, for the first one, we may not have a lot of people, be nice to have 2 map locations. It's always nice to have. I have one, but it's kind of rickety. I'll check it out.
We'll learn a lot by going through it the first time,
Right.
because a lot of the people that show up in the audience will be the same ones that come every time, I
Right.
think. And based on their style and our style, we'll get to understand what the best presentation, they may all come running up here and want to see something at
Right.
the table, you don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't do well for television, but I mean,
Yeah.
You know, if you had a map here and you said, oh yeah, here's your street, somebody out there will wanna come up and see it.
Yeah, yeah, all right. All right, so I'll bring a clipboard. We'll do what we can with maps, depending on what's available. Peter and I will have a list ready of summing up what we've learned from that, and we'll take Q&A. All right. And we have one more meeting to discuss anything else that might come up.
Okay. Good. Go ahead.
We have a wonderful website for wastewater. Does anybody look at that? And how do we know?
No, right.
It'd be nice, before we go into the Valentine's Day meeting, for us to have an idea what seems to be working, and by the traffic it receives, and what things are not working. And can that inform any changes in our website?
I'd like to comment on that, because I did go in and I've been looking at the websites. The one with the button on the front page, and then what we have under the Wastewater Support Committee, all right? Some things are duplicated. I would have liked to have done this, and I didn't have a chance. I tried to copy it, and I couldn't, so all I could do was make print screens. So I only have it for myself. But I was hoping that we could go through and organize that, because I think it's on the back of the one, on the button, where at the very bottom that says links. And when you go to the links, you go to another whole page, and they have it really nicely broken down into things like Allen Harbor. They're broken down into categories or places, which I think is very helpful, because your eyes go right to what you want. I think on the other page, it's kind of a mishmash of documents. And I was hoping that we could get together and try to organize that and ask them to maybe reposition some of it. I think some of the draft documents don't need to be there when we now have finals. I would like to add the IMA and the sewer regulations, and kind of put that maybe in with like the CWMP or certificate, like documents, presentations. I mean, it's open for discussion, but I think if it was a little more user-friendly, I think you might find that it was used more, and maybe keep that all in on that button page. I don't know how many people actually go into the Wastewater Support Committee place, other than maybe for agendas and minutes, and keep all the information on that front button, that when they get to the home page, there's your wastewater button, and everything they need to know is going to be there. That's my thought on that when I keep going in and out of that.
So I didn't have a chance to copy this. I'm just stealing a page from Eastham. Eastham is almost finished installing their water system, which is not the same as wastewater, but certainly some similarities. And their website cover page is a nice, attractive one by their firm. But the most important part of it is really just this little section down here. And they have their things grouped into the following. I'll just read them. I'm going to suggest that many of them might be ones we might want to adopt. So it's maps, videos, presentations, project documents, background info, bids and proposals, full water system tax calculator, water rules and regs, water use rates and fee schedule, and meter pit costs. So as I say, that's theirs. But I mean, I think we all agree we don't want a list of documents. We want a list of categories or buckets, and then over the next few months, we gradually populate that with what's necessary.
I think with what you listed there's plenty of documents that we have on the site that would fit into those categories.
Right.
That would make it easier, I think, for people to find what they're looking for, as opposed to the way it is now.
I'd also like to suggest that we debrief someone in Eastham, someone I know there volunteered that they found some things that didn't work. and we might be able to, some of them may not map to what we're doing. But it would be interesting to see what didn't work for them.
You mean on their website?
No,
Or
I
you mean
mean,
in general?
in general, because the comment was made to me, well, we're going back in now and correcting the things we could have done differently that didn't work. So it may be nothing that applies to what we're doing, but we might be able to learn some good lessons from what they've done.
Could
Yeah.
I suggest, Madam Chair, that maybe Ann takes that on and brings that back to committee? Instead of, having to formally have somebody come in and tell us that, if you get a debrief or whatever from them, and then share that material with us, I guess, is the way.
I will do that.
And on that note, for the future, Larry and I did work with a young man who was a Harwich resident, but he's the current planner in Eastham, and he, was deeply involved with a lot of the project, and that's Paul Legg. So I know we could get him to visit us if there was something like he helped us with the tax calculator and things like that. So it's a resource we have from that level. And a Harwich resident, so.
Is he gonna be hooked up to the sewer? Okay.
Along with that, I'm going to direct this to you. Can we on the minutes, can we actually add action items?
I don't think I'm honestly capable of it. I did give it some, no, seriously, I did give it some thought, because you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. And, when you're taking minutes, your brain is in about 1,000 places. And quite honestly, like I say, I might talk to Larry, what I might call an action plan isn't what you might call an action plan. I think that has to be settled between the chair and the vice.
All right, because
I don't see how I can remember to,
I agree.
If one of us or both of us, like, I just wrote what we've asked Ann to do, but I think that type of thing that we, like when we specifically ask somebody
Right.
for something to get back to us, then to me, that's an action item. And I think it makes it easier for the following agenda to know what we're expecting. So,
Madam Chair, I'd suggest that as the chairman, you take the action to produce an action plan.
that works.
And we
That-
can just keep an ongoing list of action items, what they are, who they're assigned to, deadlines, et cetera, and we can update it, almost every meeting as we get these things going.
So you'd rather have it as a separate item,
Spreadsheet, yeah, just make a spreadsheet.
Oh, all right,
Simple,
all right,
simple.
okay.
And that's where I was going with turning in reports. If it's extensive and won't fit in a spreadsheet, we can add it to the minutes in that fashion by giving you and Noreen a document.
All right, okay. All right, are we finished with,
well, have we decided what buckets we're gonna have? This is our time to talk about this. Or should we just wait as they come along? What's our action?
you're talking about for this
the
website?
website.
For the website. I think we need to take a look at what we have on our website to see what buckets we want. I don't know that all of those fit. And bring it back at the next meeting? Peter?
Chair, I believe in these action things very strongly, because we can say we shall go look at the website, and we'll talk about it next meeting, but unless one or two individuals take it on and go look and come back with a recommendation after they noodle it together, we'll probably be till the end of May figuring out what to do with it, and
All right.
nothing will happen. So I sort of gather you ladies have an interest in the website. I'm just guessing. And it may be worthwhile if you want to take that on, or I'd be happy to work with any, whatever, to at least look at that and figure out what we want to do.
I already did start some of it, so
Yeah,
I will
actually,
be.
Sharon was
Okay,
the
well,
champion.
I
maybe
will,
that's the
I
action
will
item.
work, I will work with, okay, I'll work with that if I can get somebody else.
My chief interest is populating information and collecting information that enables everyone, whether it's town or this committee, or the people who are dealing with this in a tangible fashion. But I think having something where I communicate with you, perhaps there's a section in the website or populating it laterally, you and I can talk about
All right.
how to best continuously feed information in, because that's, we can create these buttons all we want, but there has to be some kind of,
Well, the real question is who actually
Continuity.
implements that stuff? I don't know.
Right.
Caleb, are you still doing that?
He's gone.
Oh,
Oh,
he's on autopilot, okay. Do you know Larry?
He can watch us from the community center,
Right.
and he's assured me that when you're done, he'll shut it off.
But is he the one who's maintaining the website these days? Yeah, that's what I thought.
so he's the one that we would ask to reconfigure it,
We have to be careful because, you know, he works for someone.
okay?
So you've got to say, hey, I have a need. And if the need is, I'm making this up, if the need is to take the wastewater section and update it, okay, then the question is, well, how extensive is this? Is it a 20-minute thing? Is it a 2-month? I mean, you have to be realistic in what can get done. And we're not going to be the ones that do it. We're going to take the website and mark it up and say, we'd like it to be like this.
Okay,
And if he or whomever has the time and resources to go do it, then it will get done and we'll probably get a chance to review it, you know, before it goes live.
all right, let me ask a question. Is it possible, and I don't know if this is a legal thing, that that Ann and I could meet outside this group and work this out? So that's a legal,
And can I also add too that Chris Clark has put a lot of work into this, and I think his input should also be considered for the website. It's the town's website, you know, so it's not just what we decide goes on that page, so.
Yep.
all right.
I can give this to Ann if you want, I can reprint one.
sure, that would be easiest,
All right.
then we have the
Yeah.
same document.
All right, and then we can meet before the next meeting and
Yes.
come up with some ideas and put that out, and then,
Would you like to figure out a time now so that we can, do you have your schedule?
I do. Well, do you want to do that after the meeting, because it's
Let's
just
do
going to be,
So the action, and just to be clear, is that you and Ann will get together, review the website, and come back with suggestions, I guess, or recommendations.
I have a part 2 website question.
go ahead.
So apart from the design and content of the website that you get to by the drop of water thing, we also have our own page. And at some point fairly soon, since we're so involved with the public, I think we have to determine if that's going to have one of the town groups email for incoming emails to people listed, and who would be the monitor. And I assume that would be Sharon, but I don't think, you know, most committees don't have as many people looking for them. So I believe you as chair needs to get that email going. And my understanding of how it works is it's really only incoming.
All right, now, I guess my question, I thought the email that the chairperson gets, which is going to be a town one, was more or less for us. I didn't realize there was questions coming in on this.
Well, it can't
That's-
really be for us. Whenever they talk about this, it's so confusing because how could we communicate with each other on one email address? You know, it's like having a party line with 10 people talking at once, you know, so I don't follow the reasoning, you know, on that. But certainly it's incoming for, you know, if I'm a resident of East Harwich and I have a question and I see wastewater support committee at town.mass.us, you know.
Go
So
ahead.
2 things on that. I think it's important that when we had this night meeting, whatever it is, the 14th or whatever, they were able to say from that point forward, if you have questions or you have something you think needs to be addressed, one of your options is to email the committee
Right.
at this address, whether it has your name on it, whatever it has for a name, right? And then subsequent to that, I would say this as far as our communication amongst ourselves. What you don't want to do is copy all, because then it looks like the committee's doing work over basically over email, trying to get things done. You should flow everything to the chair, and the chair should then reach out. Now, having said that, you know, and I think that, you know, when you and Noreen are working on, say you're working on a topic, it's okay for you to communicate. You're not making any decision, you're not taking any votes, you're bringing everything back to the committee, but as a little working group, you need to get your stuff done. So there's a practicality associated
It's
with
a
it.
passive mode rather than active. When you're collecting information and following
Yeah.
up on actions, you're not affecting
Right.
any vote or any ongoing, and it's all subject to the, you know, if we put some of that in the meeting minutes, then it's all subject to review, which I think are the two critical aspects.
The last thing you want to do is, you know, distribute something to all five of us and say, let's take a vote on this one, you know, so we can, you know, make things easier. You don't want to do that.
All right. All right, so, and I'm not sure who I contact to get that email.
Foster.
Boss,
Foster, you know Foster? He's right down next to the assessor's department down there.
Right below us,
Basement, yeah.
right here.
Foster, okay. All right.
But you can ask him how it works, but I believe it's gonna be more for incoming from the public than, it's not gonna be
Okay.
for our use.
All right, all right.
You can, I think you can also see things there if you want them stored on the town, you know, however additionally you wanna use it. Right now, my concern is for the public to have a way to contact us.
Yeah, and the problem is that, you know, if people right now just send emails, say to Chris Clark, as the town administrator, and he's got all this other stuff going on. If we give them a specific email that gets routed to you, then they know and they should get comforted. It's getting focused to someone whose sole, you know, charge, if you will, is to focus on their questions, basically. And not say, okay, I got to run a town, I got to do this. I'm focused on wastewater, and it's important to us to get an answer to them, so.
All right, I have a question on that, because I did go to that, the meeting that they had on the,
Chris says to contact him.
pardon?
I was just gonna add that Chris in the meeting said to contact him with questions.
Well,
so-
we weren't formed at that point. I mean, we
Okay,
weren't
yeah,
formed
you're
at
right.
that point in time. Now, Chris could, or the selectman could override what I'm just saying here.
Yes.
But I think our task is to be the information source, and quite frankly, I think that since that's our focus, and we're gonna be gathering a lot of information, I think that, they probably get a faster answer from us, just because Chris has a lot of other things to do. And by the way, it's budget season for him and, you know, all that kind of stuff, so.
I
No,
think what,
before you just say, because you might be able to answer this, my impression, and I could be wrong, after going to that conservation, or the Law Foundation
Conservation Law
workshop that
Foundation, yeah.
they gave, originally, my impression was that everybody on every committee was supposed to have a town email, which I understand is not going to happen. But I thought the object of that was to have documented anything that's going back and forth between even two people.
That's the ideal. We're many, many moons away from that. The town hasn't made a decision yet to give emails to every single person on every single committee.
All right.
Right now, the town has only decided to provide an email per committee.
Right.
So that's what
So
we're,
my
that's our
impression with-
cards right now.
My impression from that was then, and this is my impression, I could be wrong, that anything that would, you feel that, I don't know where they're saying that everything that goes between committee people should be retrievable or available, all right? If that's the case, then are they supposed to CC that mailbox?
See, unfortunately, when they have discussions about this, they're not always clear, dare I say, the Board of Selectmen.
So let's-
But you can't get to where you want to be with one email. You just can't do it.
It's not a matter of whether I want to be there.
Well, I know, yeah.
What I'm saying
Right.
is, based on some of the regulations,
But we're not there yet.
so then I'd like to make sure that it's clear, that somebody doesn't come back to me and say, hey, you know, this was all supposed to be documented in this email, all right? If I'm the only one with this email, I need to know what is supposed to come to me that is retrievable for legal purposes. So if they're going to communicate between one another and it's not on that email, where do we stand legally?
a couple thoughts on that. Noreen's right, and Peter's made a wisecrack to me on the side that we're more confusing than we're clarifying in those discussions. And Noreen's mentioned that the initial attempt was to have everyone have a town email address so we could keep track of the documents. What we were told is that it was going to be very expensive because we have to greatly increase the capacity of our system. We've challenged that about why it's so costly, because, you know, emails are everywhere. So we haven't resolved that issue. I think Noreen and I have some experience with FinCom, Noreen more than I, but I believe, Noreen, a couple of years ago, we decided, and it seemed to work okay, was to create a FinCom email address so that, and release that so people could send in their questions to FinCom. And then the only person on that had access to that was, and probably still is, Jack,
The chair.
the chair. And so I would think that'd be a way to go here, would be to, because that we can do, is create a, WSC email address, and then you would have access to it, and you could do what you want to with, respond to those questions, because that gives people one email address to ask questions to.
Now,
And
is that separate from,
that's a separate from all this.
from
Now,
the
I'm
town
just-
email?
I'm looking,
No,
I'm trying to
that is-
address two, I'm trying to address two subjects. One is to give the, everyone easy access to your group to get questions to you and have you respond to them. And you can either respond or ask, Ann or someone, you may want to delegate who does that. I don't pick on you, Ann, but someone. But I think they do need an address to call, the email to get to easily. And you could always, when it's appropriate for Chris or Dan or someone to respond to, you can direct those responses. So the second part is keeping track of any emails you have if they're requested. In the meantime, I would hope that you would be sure you save those on your files, on your email. So if someone does come in with an open meeting request, you could give them give that information. But we haven't resolved this idea of having everyone have a town address. So
Okay.
two things. Create your own, that's easy. Create that and give the people access, and then we'll figure out the other.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So if we have that set up, we can give that to people on February 14th or whatever we decide,
Okay.
and put it on our website.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, so are we finished with the website? Do we have any more? All right. The expanded list of questions.
Good one.
Did you get those?
Yes, I did. And
Great.
thank you for sending me some information. Of course, there are not many questions at all. So I reduced it to 10, plus a few more, based on information over the years, questions that keep repeating themselves, and trying to really put myself into a situation where somebody knows almost nothing about wastewater. So, Madam
Okay.
Chairman, I think you can help determine what do you want to do with these questions in preparation for our next meeting and then on the evening meeting
Okay.
as well.
All right, just glancing at this, I'm thinking some of this we're going to need information from Dave Young. This step-by-step process, I think I sent it out to everybody that I had gotten from Larry that came from Falmouth, that I thought looked pretty good.
I did not get that. Can you resend?
Yes, I will. That might have been, okay, yeah. I'll do that as soon as I get home.
Thank you.
And you didn't get the grinder pump then either, I take it?
Nope. She had my email.
Email wrong. So I will send those out. But I think those, I thought those two documents, and I think you did get them, I don't know if you had a chance to go over them, I thought were very helpful. So I think that might help with the number 3 question.
Yes.
I think 1 and 2, but just looking at this, looks like it's going to be a Dave Young.
Can I talk a little bit about two? Okay, so when I did my synopsis of the meeting, which, I don't know, Chris might even like some of this feedback at some, Chris Clark might like some feedback at some point. But I didn't go back to the tape, but I did note on my notes that unfortunately, it appeared that the public was given 2 different answers to one question. And that was the question, which is so important to most of them, which is when will the area really be defined? When will it be finalized? And at one point, and I didn't jot down who said it, but somebody said that will be in a month or so. And then it was also the last question of the meeting, and somebody said it will be by town meeting. Well, a month or so is March, and by town meeting is May. To me, right now, for a certain part of the population, that's the most important question. Because if they're not being sued, then all the other questions disappear other than money. So, I mean, I know we have to have Dave Young to get that, and I know that's part of the design process, so it just seems as though, that is so critical to everything else. And I don't think I'll have time to go back and look at the tape, but we have given out conflicting information, which isn't good.
Is that something you can get to Dave Young about before he comes to the meeting on February 6th? At least as far as defining when, is it going to be in a month, or is it going to be closer to town meeting?
I've raised that question, because I said that one I raised when I talked to him. I'm interested in Plaza.
All right.
And you what? I'm sorry?
Sorry.
That was one of the questions I said was going to be raised at the the next meeting, the February 6th meeting. And so he's going to try to get as far as he can on it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Madam Chair, could I just ask a question while
Yes.
Larry's there? I look at these things as time is of the essence. I'm assuming CDM Smith still has their office in Yarmouth?
They do.
And is the documentation associated with the Harwich project at that location?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Okay. One suggestion I have is, and I mentioned it before about, trying to go meet with somebody at East Town, whatever, to push this along if necessary, two of us, whatever, maybe Larry, you want to go or even arrange it.
Yeah.
Have a meeting over there at the convenience of Dave, just so we can get this information, so that we can bring it back at least here and say, hey, we met with Dave Young, here's what we learned,
If that's the committee's wishes, I can try to work that out with Dave and schedule
I
something.
know he has a place in Yarmouth, he can
He-
support an early morning meeting sometimes,
Right. If that's your, excuse me, Ann, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we should make that an action item, actually, if you think that's appropriate at
Okay,
this
but I
time.
mean, it's the same thing with meeting with the Chatham people. I mean,
Yeah.
if we wait and wait for everybody to show up here on a posted meeting, it's not gonna happen. I mean, it just,
And I wanted to clarify it further, kind of like what Peter said about people don't like surprises, but they don't mind changes. If CDM were able to say, well, now we've determined that the old Heritage Lane area is absolutely not going to be part of it, In other words, if they don't have the whole thing done.
Yes.
But they might have further pieces defined as they go through the cost design process, so, I mean, we don't have to wait until it's in stone either,
All right. Then to answer that, do you want to see if you can set up a meeting, and I would go, and maybe Peter, with Dave Young before this?
I'll see if, dates that work for him, and I'll get back to you.
All right.
Can I ask to be included in that
Sure.
Q&A?
I'd only caution us with 3 people, you do have to make it well, you may wanna post it anyhow, but I mean, just be careful. You'll be
Oh.
the meeting law, that's all.
I can't do the Q&A without that kind of a thing, because then I'll
Yeah.
end up, there may be things that come up that are really critical in those meetings, so.
I don't know if I'm following this.
She needs information and
Before the
wants to
first
participate,
evening
which is
meeting.
fine, but
Oh, all right. So you would go instead of Peter? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I don't know, whatever.
Oh, so we just make it a meeting?
We make it a
You
meeting.
make it a
It's
posted
Okay,
meeting
the
all
only
right.
way
if
we
you
can
need
do
to.
it.
Okay. All right.
The field,
All right.
I think there's going to be so many Board of Selectmen's occasion and others, we have to get used to just posting general meetings when other meetings happen, and, maybe you come up with kind of a boilerplate, Sharon, that's, that's like the cover, when it's not really a meeting, it's the cover agenda to.
You're making me a little nervous because, posting a meeting to be sure you can hand over your quorum is one thing. But you also have to consider that meetings have to be public, people have to have public access to meetings. And in areas like that, if you go, we go to Dave's office, for instance, in Yarmouth, would that be considered a public place? So it gets a little,
Yeah,
Yep.
it makes me a little nervous.
yeah, that would, yeah, I think that's going to get complicated.
Yeah, there's only two of you.
I mean, I just think some of the questions, when we get to this list, you'll understand why I think I want to be at that meeting. I've actually been through a grinder pump situation that failed in a past life, and so maybe it won't be something that's presented to the public, but it's worth asking the questions to see what's going on.
Could I just, I mean, I appreciate your level of detail, let's put it that way. My interest is moving CDM Smith along as far as passing us information. And right now, I have no idea where they are in the project. I mean, we just haven't
Yeah.
seen like a project plan and all that kind of stuff. The intent of this meeting would be to to Dave Young lay it out on the table. I would suggest that maybe you and I just attend that meeting with Larry, information
the
session.
general
Let us
overall.
grab that stuff and bring it back here.
Mm-hmm.
And then at our meeting, when he's coming here, the level of detail you're gonna ask or want to ask, I think we could do at that point in
Yeah.
time. I'm looking for like the big picture so far,
Yeah.
because if we get into too much level of detail, and I have concerns about the grinder stuff as well, it may bog us down on just getting the big picture. That's all I'm trying to do at this point in
Yeah.
time, is to move that along.
Yeah, I think if we try to do this as a threesome, that it's going to be a
We won't
regular
gain any
meeting.
time, because we'll end up having this, we'll end up at the meeting we intended to have anyhow. which
Well,
we
then
will
it's going to
have.
be a public meeting, and that's not going to work
Yeah.
at Dave's. So if we just, the two of us with Larry went as an overall, where are we with this? And then when we have Dave here, have that list of questions that you can ask him, specifically about the grinder information.
Or pass the questions on ahead of time, maybe that's
And
fine
Yeah.
too.
in some ways, I'd probably frame it to Dave Young, that this is a meeting to better prepare for the February 6th meeting.
All right,
That we have a good idea of what information we want and what questions are likely to come out, so he's prepared for that.
all right, all right. So we'll do it that way, because I think otherwise, I think if we make it a meeting, then it's got to be an open meeting, and that's not going to work.
I understand the restriction. I think it doesn't serve the larger purpose to not have the details involved from early on, because they can often be a point of failure.
But that's going to be what you can bring up on February 6th.
I think
That's not that far away, because you look at it till he gets something done with Dave. I don't know if it'll be this week or the beginning of next week. You're not too far from February 6th.
I think posing the questions is an ongoing process, so having it just happen at one meeting, and it's sometimes better with a contractor to do it first.
Well, it's not going to work with the three of us going,
I understand
Yeah.
that.
but,
So,
And if you guys wanna go, I'll stay home, I have plenty of things to do.
no, I
so
was
just,
going to
you know.
suggest a second meeting with CDM Smith, if it's possible. A tactical one.
I'm
How
going
about
to leave
this?
that,
Let's see where this
'cause
first
I will
one
leave
takes
that
us.
up to you, because I
Let's
know
see
he
where the first
gets
one
paid
takes
by
us.
the hour, so I don't know.
And if Larry, Madam Chair, if necessary, maybe just you and I go to make it simple, I don't know, I mean, it's,
Yeah, that'll work too.
that's a possibility.
Yeah,
Trying to keep it simple, so.
yeah, I didn't think about that. All right. All right. Okay, so then it's going to be, Peter, it'll be you and Larry.
Okay, fine, I'm
All
happy.
right. All right. All right, let me find out where we are on this.
Can we review the questions? that
Oh,
have
yes,
been
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
In reading what was presented at the Q&A meeting, the public one that has been held, there was a reference made specifically in the text that said, under P3 DR, what are the Harwich sewer use regulations? It refers to them, but there's no actual, we should make sure we have a link and that we all know what the Harwich sewer use regulations are.
And I did bring that up, and he's going to see that we would get a copy of that, because I can't find it on any website, so I don't have access to it.
You're right, I'm chasing that down
Yeah.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Right.
But we do have the summary, and I don't know if we'll all ever get to the entire text of the sewer regulations, quite honestly, or be able to absorb it. But I do think, as an agenda item at some point, we should be prepared to discuss the two-page summary. I had suggested that at our first meeting. Remember, we copied them, then we have that, so,
Yep.
but, you know, but we can't do everything every meeting, you know,
Yeah.
but I would hope we would start with the two-page summary.
Sorry. One thing that was not addressed and that spans both timeline and the town's obligations going forward. And this comes from previous past experience where there was something that was done poorly. There needs to be implemented a standard for handing over the designs so that I know, for instance, my neighbor's designs for putting in their septic system don't match what was actually done. Where I lived before, a lot of the actual designs were not handed over to the town, which made ongoing address of sewer failures particularly problematic. And I think that's something that can happen over time. It's not super urgent right now, but it's something that probably should be on the timeline and articulated in some clear-cut way.
On that. So, if, you know, I have a proposed built on my house. I never got an as-built, you know, that's what I have. But for my house, if I was gonna be in the target area, I mean, I know where the waste pipe is. So if I don't know the exact dimensions of the septic system, but I know where the entrance to it is, and that's gonna be sealed, I guess what I'm saying, just playing a little devil's advocate, is in every situation, you might not have to know the specific layout of the septic system, because you're gonna close it up, and my target is really the waste pipe. You know, I need to get to the waste pipe in my home, not really to the septic. Just thinking.
Madam Chair, I think at our last meeting, we talked about asking the health director to come in and give
Right.
us a presentation. And the presentation would be two things. One is, what information can a homeowner get regarding their septic system today? Okay? And then questions like, have they considered what the Board of Health will do if a property in that area that's going to be sued, say within 12 months, is up for sale or sells, comes under contract to sell? They have an inspection of the septic system and it fails. But yet, within, pick a time frame, 12 months, they're gonna be hooked up to the sewer. They're gonna be required to take action to, say, replace their septic system, and within 12 months then hook up to a system, huge expense? Or is there some provision that says, I'm making this up, that they keep the system as it is and it gets pumped once a month, or something that avoids putting a big, you know, capital expense in for something you know you're not gonna use more than 12 months, or some time frame like that, so. But anyhow, the point was, getting the health director here so that, as we heard at the community meeting, that as folks wanna learn about what their septic system is today, they know how to go and look up records and how to request records and whatnot, and what they can expect to see, if anything, you know. Some things are well, just as you said, some things are well documented, some things aren't, so.
To that,
I jumped in on Ann and
Yeah.
went on.
I had a bit of a concern, which may come up, and may be part of the questions we have now, but in my neighborhood, where people's pipe is almost always in the back of the house, and they said specifically in the presentation that they measured to the front, and that determines the grade. I guess this would be something you should bring up with CDM Smith, in that, is the grade measurement accurate?
I can't give any comfort to that question, Ann.
didn't
That's a
think of it.
huge question some folks in my neighborhood, as they brought up, I think, at the meeting. And I think Mike at the meeting, response to that was that getting to the front was enough that would give them where they were going. My neighbor, some of my neighbors still have questions regarding that, so I think that's a follow-up we need to get to.
I think what he actually said was they measured to the top of the sill at the
Yeah.
front of the house, which
Right.
would be in essence the top of the foundation. And from that, they should know what the top of the foundation, the back of the house is, unless your foundation's like that.
Exactly.
So it gives them a point of reference.
Gives them a
So-
point of reference. Some of these, at least one of my neighbors has a fairly slope in the back, so he's not,
You have it the
I
other way.
didn't quite comfort him as way as
Yeah,
they
yeah.
hoped they would, so.
Yeah.
Can I, while I have the mic, can I just change subject very briefly? Your evening meeting on the first Thursday, I think, of the month. Any case,
Wednesday.
Oh, you mean the
Wednesday.
evening meeting, Wednesdays?
Wednesday, this room's not available. That's what Sandy was coming in to tell me.
Oh, all right.
She she came back with a couple options. You could get here the third Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock, or the fourth Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock.
All right. You,
What are those
pers-
dates?
huh?
Let's
All
check
right.
them out.
But you
Yeah.
specifically said you wanted Wednesdays, because
Let-
that's when you said the people were, that was their best timing.
I just need to know what the dates are.
15th and the 22nd. You said third Thursday and fourth Thursday?
Right.
So 15th and 22nd.
Available at 6.
Now, was that just for, is that just for
No, I think
February?
that's going forward.
going forward? All right.
I don't think if the room's not available, there's not
Yeah.
much we can
I
do.
Well,
think the
unless
problem
we-
is that Wednesdays turns, that's normally a Conservation Commission meeting, is
Yeah.
the
Okay.
same time.
Yep.
And I believe they may even conflict with the Board of Health. One takes this room, one takes the other room, depending on how they ever they fight it out.
So I'd suggest we look at the third Thursday, because that's our off meeting week.
Okay. All right.
Doesn't work for me in February, but that's,
Pardon me?
I said in February, that doesn't work for me.
Right, but we weren't really counting on you for the evenings.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, I'm just telling you.
So what's the date of that one?
That's, so that would now be the 15th, and we don't have to worry about Valentine's Day.
All right. So
With that,
we're,
Madam Chair, I have to depart, I'm sorry, my time is up for today, unfortunately. It's 10 o'clock.
Oh,
10
it is
o'clock's
10
wrong,
o'clock.
but
wow, it is 10 o'clock
time goes
already.
by fast.
All right. All right. Thank you.
I look forward to excellent minutes coming out soon.
And you will get
And
them.
when you get home, they'll be there.
Probably.
No.
So you're saying we're going to, that's what you think it's going to be all right to go with the Thursday evening?
Well, it'll affect attendance maybe, but I can attend, so that's all I can.
Well, you were talking about you,
Yeah, it's,
the people.
That's all right.
I don't know, I mean, you really, I'll tell you who I go to for this, is the people who run all the athletic events, because they know which things conflict.
I would say at this point, it's more important to have it televised so people can
Yes.
look at it. And if that's the room that the town can provide, then
Well, what, I guess,
Take it.
oh, you're saying televised, all right, because I was going to say we could look for a different room, but then that
Yeah.
wouldn't work. All right, so we're going to go with the third,
The
third,
15th,
the 15th,
which is the
February
third,
15th.
all right,
third Thursday of each month.
And we need to let Sandy know,
all right.
before somebody else takes that time.
Third Thursday. All right. So that brings us to
I'm
the,
so, okay.
that would be, what is that? All right, so
Yeah.
in this case, it would be the 22nd.
No, it'd
for
be the
February.
15th.
Oh, the 15th, I'm sorry, the 15th, all right. All right,
Can we go back to
Yeah.
my question? Review. You'll find out that I'm very interested in the details, because very often that's when these things both fail, and they also undercut your credibility sometimes when you're putting forward these questions. I've been through a grinder pump failure in a past life, and so I think at some point, perhaps as part of training sessions, much like the ones that Eastham had, that we need to help people determine what engineering, and perhaps with Harwich involved, what engineering criteria come in, because I can tell you what happens. What happens when the pump you have purchased fails and repeatedly fails? We had to put in a warning light, and so someone had to be looking out the window to see when it went from green to red. And so one of the problems is when it failed, it backed up all the sewage into basements. Now, that may not, this is a very specific situation. It may not impact this, but I'm saying that when you have these live pumps, there's going to be, one of the reasons this happened was bad engineering. It was an incline issue. And one of the reasons it happened is we bought the wrong pump. I mean, the person who manufactured it was not the best of the providers. It was the cheapest. And so I'm suggesting that at some point, and it impacted health as well as ability to sell and everything else. So I'm suggesting that as we go forward, one of the issues that came out at that meeting was, how do I do this? I'm not a professional. And that really having some training sessions that address the engineering aspects. What do you buy? We don't need the paper pipes that were put in the past in Harwich, which fail in 10 years. And that we may even find it valuable to have a simple legally reviewed document. So when you bid this, because there's a lot that can go wrong, what happens if the approved contractor splits on you halfway through, goes belly up? I mean, we really need to have a little bit of help with helping people handle the curb. And I think that that's going to be a big issue, just as the finances are. I think it's perfectly doable. I think that can be done, but I think people need to have some input on that.
Yeah, very good questions. Let me throw out a suggestion. The folks in my neighborhood at the meeting, they're really concerned about the grinder pump issues. They've mentioned, I think, several times. And one of the residents, Barbara, who spoke at the meeting, has been in contact with a pressure pump, E1, I think it is. And they're going to invite them to give a neighborhood discussion to try to educate them just on grinder pumps. And I talked to the fellow at the meeting, and he's committed to give an overview of grinder pumps. I mean, he's obviously going to market his as being a favorite. Yeah. And but that doesn't get to all your questions, Ann, but would get maybe some education on grinder pumps, because, you know, I asked him questions about with power fade, how much can they hold? You know, they do have some volume, and presumably if power's out, you're not running a lot of water, so it would go. But maybe, in any case, I have to look into this, because the problem is it'd be perfect for him while he's down here to also speak at, you know, range those maybe at the, or, you know, do some forum. I have to be careful that it doesn't look like we're promoting one company over the other. So that's
That's all right.
Pardon?
I mean, we have plenty of demonstrations. We have.
I think you can do it. We have demonstrations coming all the time.
Right.
We have on construction, we did on the, so I think I can do that. Just be sure that we say up front that this is educational.
Right.
Because that might help Ann to get at least some of the, because he's promised to bring in names and details from other.
What about the engineer that the town is using for this? Can he do an educational for the pressure pumps, the grinder pumps, for any of this?
Well, it'd be better coming in this case from the manufacturers to get the details. I think to get the type, all the details that Ann you're looking for. CDM Smith uses them. They're familiar with when I talk to them. It's one they use as a vendor, but I would think that they might be able to give more details.
actually have the name of someone who is an engineer who's done this nationwide, and I considered asking him if some of the engineering organizations have some, because they're nationwide and they're professional organizations.
It'd be good to get all that, yeah.
If he can give me some free guidance on where to go to find some of this evaluation and documentation, we might as well use some of those organizations
Well,
because they've...
well, I fully agree, and that may be a topic for one meeting.
Yeah, I've often thought that we should have an independent third party come in and discuss some of these Q&A questions.
Yeah.
Someone who's had national experience as well as living on the Cape. And that one of the criteria might be that he restricts himself from bidding in Harwich so that his input is 100% independent.
I don't know how we pay for that, though.
I'm saying that
No, they just come.
he, I would be asking if he would be willing to come and do it as an educational,
On Ann's note, I was disappointed at one of the answers at the public meeting, which was when the presenter was asked, when did the town decide to have a full pressure system versus a gravity system? The answer was that that was voted by the Wastewater Implementation Committee meeting as part of the CWMP. Well, first of all, we all know that that decision was made back around 2010, 2011, long before the inception of the wastewater. It would have to at least have been the wastewater task force. But I honestly don't believe that the members of that committee realized that they were making a decision of that gravity. No pun on the word. Gravity, but, so, I mean, I don't think at this stage of design we can reconsider things like that, but I personally don't like it when people say that that was voted as part of a 1,000-page document, that's...
I think we're all running out of town, so this will be the last time I speak. I can give you a little bit of background to that question. This E1 or something, part of their system is fully pressurized, and they say that's is less expensive.
Right.
For various reasons, depending on the topography and so on. I did find out, however, that they're not married to that.
Oh.
They'll do a pressure from your house, like you think, to a gravity flow collection system. And so it's not plus or minus. And so there was a little misunderstanding that was behind that question. And then I agree, then I didn't like the response that much, but it was.
I think we need more
So we
info,
need,
'cause
we
I'm
need,
still
as
confused.
Anna's probably pushing us, we need more details on
Right.
that, because that was, in that particular case, it was a bit of a misinformation that, behind that question, and then it was answered by a little misinformation.
Yeah.
Such is life.
Some of these questions that Ann has is, can we see that Dave Young gets these questions before the February
Absolutely,
meeting?
yeah.
That,
I've been sharing with, did with you, but I've also, when I get questions from my neighborhood, I share them with Dave Young. I'll get questions here, I share them, because there's no reason to keep any of this
yeah,
quiet. If I don't raise them, you guys will later. I'm all for you asking questions and, just think about it and try to get, in the world we live in, the last place you want to have questions come out is at town meeting.
yeah.
Make it get to the end of the story. So, I absolutely, whenever I get questions, whether it's written or email or stuff, I shoot them out right away. And when he responds, I try to get those back right away.
Do you want to see that Larry gets those to give to Dave Young?
At least the first phase, because as I see this, it's an ongoing discovery process, because it's real engineering.
Right, but I'm saying, since he's going to be here February 6th, what questions we do have, if he knows what some of these questions are, hopefully he'll be able to respond to some of them.
Anytime you give me anything information, I send them on.
Got it. All right.
Anytime he responds, I'll send them back.
I will send you those questions, and then I will submit the questions I have sent to him for the minutes of the next meeting as where I am on an action item.
All right, okay, okay.
Okay, so we up to number 3?
All right, do we just keep, check
We're
on
up-
time?
We're up to number 3?
Okay.
Okay. Can I jump in?
Please jump in.
Okay. So, number 3 is the one about, it's modeled on what I'll call the Falmouth document. Can you give homeowners a simple step-by-step process for the actual hookup as well as the decommissioning of the current septic? What's a grinder? I think, rather than try to go into this now, I think we need, as we've done with a few other things, 2 champions of that document from this committee. And we have to name those names, and they have to start to edit and add to the Falmouth document to make a Harwich document. So maybe we can't determine that at this meeting since we've lost 2 members. And I also think when it comes agenda time, if our meetings are gonna be diminished after 10 o'clock, then we have to shorten our agendas, you know, one or the other. But at any rate, I don't think we can answer this.
Ann was raising her hand to volunteer for the list, weren't you, Ann?
Yeah, well, whatever. But, you know, I don't think we can, this is an important document, and I don't think we can answer who will be the the authors of it without 2 members here.
All right,
We actually don't have a quorum right now, so my question is, should we move some of these to our next
Okay,
meeting?
we have a quorum.
we have a quorum.
Got
Yeah.
it, sorry.
Now, we can move these.
Right. All right, so can I say for number 3 that we will decide at next meeting who will be? Well, first of all, do you agree it's a worthy project?
Yes,
I agree.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, so next meeting, we'll decide who will be the authors of the Harwich document. Now I'm gonna make up some time. Okay, so when we come to hookups and costs, and, you know, that's more in the neighborhood that, you know, I would like to hang around in. And I'm gonna, it was mentioned, I don't know where, but we need a firmer, we need to understand where the figure 5,000 to 7,000 came from, and we need a better figure for hooking up a typical property in Harwich to work with. So the question is, how do we get there?
That's another question I raised, and Dave Young is comfortable that they surveyed some people to get that information.
I guess,
I think it gets, by noticing in the paper that another consultant gave Orleans a figure of like 5,000 to 15,000.
right, well, see,
do
I
the
guess
same.
that's what it
But
is.
let me
All right.
finish. What we need and what they're, and in my mind, we need a medium and a range. And I don't think the range is broad enough right now so people understand it.
I thought my comment, I think I mentioned that to you before, was, and I know Dave Young, you know, they surveyed. My question is, when did these people hook up? At what, I mean, if it was 10 years ago,
Right.
those figures, 5,000 to 7,000, aren't really, to me, valid.
But-
So that's my question. He always says he goes back and he talked to people. My point is, when did they hook up? We
I
need
think the
something
tough,
more.
if I just may, I think
My question.
I think this is a timeline issue in some respects. I think when you get more details, when we understand, you know, where people, what their hookup's gonna look like, which one's gonna need grinder pumps, which one's not, then we can get very specific estimates. Right now, we're sort of shooting in the dark.
Okay, so, but, in this part of the project, which I would probably be more involved in, what I wanna know in that number for Dave is, I wanna know, does that include landscaping? Does that include closing my septic? Does that include,
Well-
we used that 5 to 7 number for 7 years as kind of a base, but now I wanna rip it apart and I wanna find out every little dollar that's in there.
Right.
And-
I
and
fully
that's-
agree with that.
That's what I need to know to tell the public.
Just quickly, we need really, what you're saying is a line item breakout with a you know, cost of per foot of pipe,
Yeah.
because
Right.
no one does estimates without these line items, and then what is excluded, you can leave a simple.
Couldn't agree more. We need those details.
If I may just stretch you.
Yes.
I think at some point, Dave or some entity can say, here are the elements that dictate the costs, and it could be the length of pipe from the front to the back, the number of turns, you do this with plumbing in a house. The guy says, well, you need this kind of fitting here, that kind of valve there, this, got to drill through some studs and what have we. And I think CDM or somebody could easily put together a table of the elements that go into it, and then each homeowner sort of can get a pretty rough guess as to where they are. Are they in the $5,000 range, the $10,000 range, or whatever the number is, with the cost associated for each element in the construction of that thing. I think that's fairly easily done.
And you have to also add to that what's other things that are left out, because I know for the high percentage of people on my street, what does it cost to deconstruct your entire deck?
Right.
Almost everyone on my street has a deck over their septic. People have a septic system under the driveway. I mean, that's perhaps not the most normal. But, it would be really helpful when your neighborhood starts, this is what came up before, when your neighborhood starts to get current, real estimates of what it's going to cost, it would be helpful to use that as a baseline going forward as well.
Yeah, I think it's a
Not
good
any
idea.
one person, but typical.
Right, you can begin to build on the actual costs at that time to extrapolate for what's going to happen
People
for
going
other
for
people.
loans will need to know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
all right, so,
Okay, so I guess I'm saying that I would want to be one of the people involved in all of the questions and sections that have to do with hookups, and we can wait till we have all 5 here. Hookups and costs, of all sorts to the taxpayer.
As a point of, don't forget to alert your friend here.
how do we alert him?
Just during the meeting, he's watching it.
Oh, all right, okay, all right.
So we can wait till we have the 5 here to decide who number 2 will be.
But I think the two of you.
No. Hang on,
Go ahead.
who's got the floor?
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
When we have all 5 here, I will say that I'm interested in being a part of that effort.
Yeah, that's possible. I've worked with Peter on this for years also, so,
right.
let's wait till we get some more info.
All right, so what do you say then that we table the rest of these for the next?
No, I'd rather not.
You wanna,
Well, I have some points to make on
Okay.
some of them.
okay,
So I would say we've done as much as we can do with the
These.
expanded list of questions.
Okay.
All right? So are you suggesting we table field trip to Chatham?
where that came up was,
It's fine.
Peter Hughes had said something to me about he and I going and talking to, Duncanson?
Duncanson, yes,
Uh,
doctor.
Yeah, and I just ask some more like general questions. What do they do
Yeah,
with different issues with the town people?
right. So do you want to table it, or do you want to discuss it?
Well, I don't know whether we need a vote on something like that.
May I make a point on that? It seems to me that, that you may want to do that in the future, but that should be considered after your meeting after his meeting with CDM Smith. I'm not sure what this field trip is about. Is
It was,
about
what Peter,
interface with the town, or is it?
yeah, more or less,
Okay.
yeah, it's more or less interfacing with the town, how they did certain things. So, Peter's suggestion was that he and I go down and do that. So if that's all right with the rest of the committee, we'd try to get something set up and go down and talk to him. And I would do that through Peter, because he's had interactions with Duncanson. I've only ever met him once.
And I've been over there to actually tour the
Yeah, I
facility.
did that. I did that with the wastewater committee.
Yeah, I would validate beforehand that Duncanson might not refer you to somebody else. He had a big hand in it, but the town interface may be somebody else. So I would suggest that you
I would have,
validate that.
and I would let Peter do that, since he has worked with that whole group down there, who he wants to go to. So, I don't know, do we need a vote on that, or can we just?
No, I would suggest you take that as an action
take that
item with
action.
Peter.
All right, and I'll do that with Peter, okay.
Okay, so one I want to get in, so I'm going to grab it, is our first discussion of wastewater moments.
Okay.
Now, during the many months, like when it was a number of people on the committee and other things, while this was being discussed, one of the things that was mentioned was the wastewater moments, which were started by Peter Hughes many years ago, which were simply 5-minute pieces of information, 5 to 10 minutes, that were given to the public as part of the Board of Selectmen meeting. And those were done pretty religiously for a couple of years. Then they lapsed after last town meeting, and other than 2 meetings when Chris Clark read the summarized sewer regulations, there's been no input of that kind since then. So it's been 9, 10 months. So what was considered part of the assistance of this support committee, you know, it's called support for that reason, is that this committee would take over the wastewater moment section and the Board of Selectmen would start to have it again. Now, a couple of things I'll say about that. If we're not going for construction money in May, well, the question is how often do you have them? And I had spoken with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and personally, I think every other week is probably sufficient to do it properly. Every week it's just, you know, always in your face. And, you know, unless it was a month before we were going to town meeting with a major amount of money, then maybe every week, even just to stand there. But I would hope that we would first start to talk about an every other week schedule.
So like after, the Monday after our Tuesday meetings?
No, these would be at the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, it would be, you're saying every other week with the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
So I'm saying,
So what I'm saying is, these wastewater moments don't really have anything to do with our meetings, all right? These are educational for the public. You must remember when Peter Hughes used to give them. He gave them for years. So, all right, so this is how it works. So we lay out a schedule, and I was hoping today we would, but it will have to go back on for February 6th. So then we would decide like 6 topics. And we would say like, okay, the first topic would be to step back and give the public an overview, because your public is not just the East Harwich target area, it's all of the people who are paying for everything. So this is just, this is one of the things I didn't get a chance to prepare, so it's probably better that we didn't get to it in detail. But this would be more like, I mean, I'm just throwing out random things. Okay, first meeting, overview of project to date. Second meeting, why East Harwich? Third meeting, what a typical home goes through. Remember, I'm just throwing these things out off the top of my head. Fourth meeting, drilling down into some of the specific costs. So the way, during the discussions when this committee was formed, this really doesn't have anything to do with our meetings. This was a duty that we took on. So we would say like, okay, starting in February, we're going to be at the Board of Selectmen on the 5th, the 12th, you know, whatever, every other week. And normally, the chair gives presentations. I was going to suggest, since we're doing so much, that other people help with these presentations.
Great idea.
And, you know, and that's why laying out a schedule like a class or a syllabus is important. So, but this is something we really need to do. I mean, I was the one who complained about the fact that they had lapsed. To some people, they are critically important. You know, to go without information from May to January is, you know, not a great image to be sending. So I would ask that this be put back on the schedule for May 6th, but that at that time, we're really ready to discuss. I was hoping we'd be having these by February 5th. You know, because we really need, I know the chair of the Board of Selectmen plans to start putting them on very soon. So this is our chance for preparation. Otherwise, it's going to be somebody 5 minutes before trying to figure out what to say.
So are we going to decide this at, are we going to decide at these meetings what is going to be said at the Board of, at these Board of Selectmen?
At these meetings, My feeling is that we should decide what's gonna be said over the next 2.5 months. And you lay
Oh.
out a schedule.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can change it when something comes up. You
Yeah.
just say, okay, we're not gonna talk about the boring sewer regs tonight, we're gonna talk about this thing that just came up.
All right.
But you lay out a schedule. No, I don't think we wait till last minute. And that way, people can say like, oh, cost, well, Noreen's got background on cost, maybe she can give that one. Oh, it's the overview, Sharon should introduce the committee and blah, blah, blah. And,
Timeline,
right, yeah,
because that's vastly misunderstood. And I
right.
think the map has helped because everybody talks about phase 1 and phase 2, but the map, it has 3 and 8 and,
Right,
you know,
right,
it's
yeah.
extremely
Mm-hmm.
confusing.
Confusing, yeah.
And I think one of them might be, to begin with, is to review one of the things that people are confused about, and that is, we're obligated to do this. It's a
Good point.
regulatory
Excellent point.
it's a regulatory mandate. We have a legal obligation. So when people say, oh, we can just ignore that, we don't have to do it, that basic point
Yeah.
should be the very first discussion.
Right, well,
And, you know, even if it means bringing in, you know, the town lawyer to
Yeah.
comment on it, so that it's very clear in people's minds, because it isn't.
No, it isn't.
It really is not. I can't tell you how many people who have told me, oh, well, I just won't be one of the ones who connects.
Yeah.
and also, that's when we can use ad hoc people.
Yes.
You know, we may be asked to give these every week, you know, I don't know. But I would ask that at least the three of us plan to come to our February 6th meeting with an actual list of topics.
Of topics.
You know, to present to the other two. And, you know, we're not deciding the 5-minute speech, we're deciding just the topic. So, and then be ready to, you know, go by the following week, the 12th, for the first one. That would be my suggestion. We'll see if we make that. But we can't go much longer. You know, it's been since May, you know.
I
and-
think it's been too long.
Yeah, it's been way too long without this, so that's my input on water moments. I don't have anything specific to add to the rest, so if we want to delay those till setting the next.
We'll delay those and we'll bring that wastewater moments back. The questions you're going to, Ann, you're going to get that list of questions to Larry to give to Dave Young.
Can you let me, as soon as you know the date of the meeting with Dave Young, that would be very helpful.
It's February 6th.
Oh, that is February
Yes,
6th.
yes, he's going to be here February 6th.
Now, are you talking about
I'm
the
talking
separate?
about the private, the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I've got to wait to hear from Larry on that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
because, you know, there's 2 lists of questions that I'm dealing with here. One are the ones that need to be clarified, and then the ones that will be discussed in the meeting.
I'd send both lists to Larry.
Yeah. And then I will ask him to send them to you.
Yeah.
For the,
Or just CC, copy me.
No, I'm not gonna CC things. I will do a pass-through. And then I will give you the document I sent to him
All right.
as part of the minutes.
All right, all right. All right, so, do we want to adjourn the meeting?
No.
No, where do you want to go?
All right, so we agreed, we're moving some of these other topics we'll have to talk about. So I guess I've got to say, I'm not sure. Are Peter and Chris going to be leaving at 10 every week?
I'm not sure.
All right, well, we need to shorten our agendas then, because what's the point? So you said that at each meeting you wanted to talk about topics for the next agenda. So now we're talking about topics for February 6th.
Right.
And of course, the biggest one will be that we'll have
Dave Young.
CDM Smith here. On that note, I would make a suggestion that you consider arranging for the health department to come on the 20th.
The 20th, is that,
You know, these things, sometimes people say, no, I can't do that, but we probably won't have Dave, and I think that's something we should have the health department in and hear what they have to
now,
say.
I guess I have to go through Chris Clark for that. I can't
Yeah, go through Chris. Just send him an email and say, gee, we'd like to arrange this. Do you want me to call her directly, or can you?
Okay.
But, I mean, it doesn't have to be the 20th, but we only
No,
have
but
so
I
many votes.
actually had that written down, that I thought we needed to do
Yep.
that sooner than later.
Okay, so for the next agenda, we would have all of our regulars. I think we want to have Dave Young up more up front. Well,
Yes.
updates from the town administrator we have to have, but we don't know what happened. And then have Dave Young right away
Yeah.
under old business.
Can I put that under old business, or can we just, I don't know how you do that.
It's
'cause
certainly old business.
It's old
if it's Dave Young.
Okay.
Or if he has things to say that are new business, that'll be good for us to hear.
All right.
Getting answers.
I don't know how much time we're going to have. I don't know how much time it's going to take, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions with him.
Right,
So I don't know how much we want to put on the agenda.
right. Well, we've got to put wastewater moments back on.
Yep,
Because
yep.
it's our obligation, and otherwise, it'll be you, Sharon, up there talking about it. Well, seriously.
All right.
Because Michael, you're going to see an agenda that's going to say wastewater moment, and you'll get an email saying, I hope you're ready to fill it in, and so if
Okay.
you don't give us time to prepare, then you're
That
on
may
your
be
own.
the ad hoc
Right, yeah.
person
Yeah,
that you recruit.
Yes, yes.
But I'm serious about that. I think that is a good place for someone who can, expand on,
Exactly.
All right. Because I don't remember, because I've been coming to the Board of Selectmen meetings probably for 2 years, and I don't remember Peter Hughes getting up.
I do.
I mean, Peter DeBacher, and maybe it was.
Hughes.
It was
Pe-
Hughes.
oh,
It was
Peter.
Hughes,
He did them himself as a selectman.
yeah.
Oh,
And they
all
were
So
right,
now
very
we're going to
basic.
take over that
all
role
right,
to
okay.
unburden them.
all right. Now I'm
And they
following.
were very basic, but to
Yeah.
the point.
About
All right.
5 minutes,
All right.
sometimes longer.
Sometimes less, honestly.
Yeah, sometimes less.
All right.
Sometimes they had a slide, Most of it was just slides from the regular presentations, just to remind people of things,
All right.
It was a new map was available, things like that.
yeah.
And some
No,
of it was
Peter Hughes.
reminding.
You don't remember Peter Hughes?
I guess I wouldn't have thought of them as wastewater moments. Was they
Okay.
actually called
That's
that?
what it was
That was
right
what
on
it
the
was.
agenda. Yeah.
And one of the valuable ones, which is something that perhaps would be good to revive quickly, was to remind people to go to the website, the drop
Yeah.
of water, and
Okay.
say, 3 new things have been added.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we add things, that probably is something, somebody who's been to that website multiple times thinks they've done it.
Right.
Going to it and
Yeah.
saying there are new things on it.
Just us
Yeah.
having an email, that's worthy of
Yep.
note,
Well, all right, and speaking of that website, maybe you and I can get together sometime this week and go over, and we could bring, that shouldn't take long, we can just bring back our suggestions.
I need to go through the website
Right.
myself
Yeah.
because I went through it so many times, I don't know how it's changed.
What I did was there wasn't any way to print it. When I tried to print it, all I got was the side thing.
No,
So
yeah.
I did a copy paste
Yeah,
and did that, and I did the one from the water drop, the button, and then I did one from our site, so that we can sit down and decide, what do we think needs to be where, and then present it to the group, and,
that'd be great.
yeah, all right.
And we
So-
probably should have access to a computer to do that as well, so, I mean, laptop.
I don't have a laptop. I never bothered to get one, but I have a computer upstairs that we can go up and use.
I'm happy to come over and we'll just sit in front of the computer
That
rather
works.
than fiddle.
That works, that works. All right, so we'll come up with a date that works for the both of us this
I'm
week.
here all this week, gone next week.
All right, let me just double check whether I have to pick up grandkids.
That works.
So, all right, so then we'll bring back the
Wastewater moment.
wastewater moments, the website
Right.
suggestions, change suggestions.
So we didn't really finish, our list of questions. I think we have to revisit that. If we get to it or not, we don't know, just maybe
I'll put it on there, just,
put it down lower. Have Dave Young first,
yeah,
website next, and then wastewater moments or
and then list
one
the
of those
questions.
two.
Yeah.
And then, so at least we can get somebody working on the Falmouth Harwich document, and, all right, so that's gonna be our list of questions.
Okay.
And I would say, even though I think it's important, we move Facebook off till later in the month, a discussion of Facebook.
Too soon, yeah.
Yeah, and grants, that's just ongoing.
All right.
Unless anybody had any other stuff on those.
Honestly, grants is something I meant to look into and didn't get to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think the reason we're putting it off is because we're still getting documents and
Yeah.
things
Well-
together. I mean, this committee's in its early
Very early,
phase, and some
yes.
of this is housekeeping that is necessary, and we've lost time. I mean, that's the other aspect of
Yeah.
not having a working committee over the months. is-
Yeah.
I actually did start, a lot of files you start and they never get used, so you don't know which is all right,
Yeah.
you don't know which ones. I actually did start a tickler file, as I suggested, of just a list
Yeah.
of the state grants.
Right.
Just because I was sick of looking them up over and
Yeah.
over again, so, we'll see what happens with those. But as far as those goes, that's not anything I look for, that's just something while I'm reading something else, if I see anywhere that says money,
All right.
But I did, and I had talked to Karen, and that's something might be for an agenda item, but I really liked Chris Harlow's idea that we get back in touch with both the Cape Cod Commission and the county separately about the monies that they have gotten and are getting in, and are there any further benefits that could be for Harwich. And I just did hear on the radio this morning that Paul Niedzwiecki is resigning and going to another job.
They knew that last week,
Okay.
so,
And
and there's a
so-
big debate about who will replace him,
Right.
which may make it
You
difficult.
know, it might make it difficult, or it might be a good time to put a new shoe in the door, but whatever. But I think that's maybe the biggest thing we can do on
Well,
grants right now.
If it's appropriate, the other thing to add to that list, because I know the selectmen have met with her, is, because she's writing things right now, is Sarah Peak
Uh-huh.
is writing a grant situation now, and I specifically asked her to include anything she can for curb to house when if there's a pool of money that could support. It was strictly a request. I know the selectmen have met with her, but her office is incredibly helpful, and I don't know what's correct, if you will, but she has an exceptional staff, and asking, I think the selectmen have met with her, so asking to be updated on grants via her office would be exceptionally beneficial.
All right.
Because she represents
Yeah.
the Cape, she knows it backward and
Yeah.
forward, and she's actually in the process of writing things that will allow us to tap state monies.
That would be very helpful,
So,
since we're supposed to be making recommendations to the board for this.
I know Michael McCaskill told me that they had met with her last Friday,
All right.
but we don't know what came out of it, and it was specific to money, so, but it would be good for us to know that as well.
Mhm.
It would be premature if something is just being written.
Yeah.
And likewise, the federal monies, the early stage is now that they will limit any federal monies. This is, obviously not signed, that federal monies will only consist of 20% of any project, which is really disastrous for us,
Wow.
so.
Yeah. All right. Anything, do we want to cover anything else, or should we adjourn?
She's making minutes.
You're making minutes. All right.
Move to adjourn?
I second it.
Adjourned.
We're adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Make sure you can hear us. I'm waiting for the light to go out.
I know it.